Today, we're going to be looking at how we can implement a simple and flexible chat system into any of our multiplayer projects. Specifically, we'll be making something like this, a chat system for this simple tank game where each window we can type in a message and we can see it being received in the other windows. If you'd like to see the step-by-step process of making this small networked game, including the extended features and a full game loop, making that fully networked, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified as soon as those new videos go live. The project at the moment is making use of the built-in Unreal session system, allowing us to create a session with the host button. Using the refresh button will allow us to search for any active sessions, and when one is found, a join button will be created, and the join button allows us to use the built-in join session functionality and join the found sessions. To keep things simple and readable for this project, I'm setting the name of each session to simply display the index of the for loop when they're found. And to save a huge amount of time, we'll be using Stream Chat, which has billions of end users worldwide. They provide native SDKs for Unreal and Unity, just to name a couple. So big shout out to Stream for your support in sponsoring this video. To get started, we can move over to getstream.io, select chat messaging, go to the SDKs dropdown, and we can see here we have the Unreal option. This is where we can get started looking through all of the options provided by the Stream plugin. So take a moment to look around the webpage if you wanted to see more on the plugin that we'll be using. To make this process a little bit easier, I will be providing the Tanks project that you've just seen playing in the background. So be sure to look in the description down below to get the link to download that project for free. And do note that's been created for use in Unreal Engine 5. With that hopefully downloading in the background, we can look at how we can get Stream installed to our project, and there are a couple of different ways that we can do this, and I'll run through both with you, and you can choose the approach that you prefer. On this main page, what we want to do is go to the download code option here. Now this will open us in the Git repository for the project, so I'm just going to middle mouse button click to open this in a new tab, and moving over to the GitHub page, we can see here we're greeted with a really nice project. This has some pre-built games and some different examples of all of the different things that the Stream plugin offers. We'll be focusing just on the send and receive message functionality for this tutorial. But once you're kind of familiar with how to get the Stream chat integrated, how it's working, I would definitely recommend returning here after the tutorial to see some of the other features provided in the Stream chat plugin. If we scroll down a little bit further though to get started, we can see down here, we have a download the latest release option of the plugins here, which will go into the plugins directory. So we're going to want to click on this one, and this will take us to a list of different options. Some of the things you see here, like the Jumpy Line, is from one of the example games that I've just mentioned in the larger project. What we'll be looking for though is Stream Chat 5, because as I've mentioned, the project I've provided is working in Unreal 5.0, and we can see that this was released, the most recent release, 10 days ago. So go ahead and click on this to download Stream Chat 5, save this in a folder that you'll remember, and open that when it's done. When you have that ready, we'll need two folders open. We'll need the project folder that I've asked you to download. You can use your own projects if you wanted, but I just figured that having a somewhat networked project ready to go is going to help streamline this process as much as possible. We'll also need the folder where you've downloaded the Stream Chat plugin. To get the Stream Chat plugin, we just want to extract this using an extraction tool of your choice. We'll extract this here, and we can dive into this folder here. So we need the folder nested within. I'm just going to rename this. We don't need the 5.0 in the plugin name, and everything inside of this is what we'll need to add to our project. Now, this step is just a very standard Unreal Engine plugin process. So inside of the root folder of the project, in line with the content and the .u project so that you know you're in the right location, we'll Control-Shift and N to create a new folder, and I'll name this one Plugins. So this is case sensitive. This is an Unreal naming convention. We need our plugins folder, as I've said, in line with those other folders and U projects so you know that you're in the right place. We'll drag the Stream Chat into the plugins, and that will now be ready to go inside of the project. So we can launch this, and we should see, we'll get a message here saying that this is built with a different version of the engine. Perfectly fine, just means that they may have built it with a slightly earlier point version. So we're just going to say we'll let this be rebuilt. This may take a little while, and hopefully this will get the project open for us. In this case, I've just needed to double click the U project again. This time it's come up saying that the project couldn't be compiled, try rebuilding from source. Now, of course, this isn't a code project, which is fine. So if this happens, what you might want to do is just double check if you've already tried loading this. We can just get rid of the folders that we won't be using, pretty much everything apart from the plugins, content, and config, and we'll just let this rebuild itself entirely. We can see this time it works perfectly fine. Just a quirk that I don't remember happening in previous versions of the engine when doing this sort of thing, so I just wanted to cover that as a potential Unreal Engine 5 quirk to get around. We'll leave this, we don't need to do these, and we can just go to Edit, Plugins. When inside of the editor, we'll go to Other, and we can see that Stream Chat has now been enabled. So that is the first way that we can get this installed. If we wanted to, we could start going into the classes, and we can see, I'll just open the player class quickly, and we can see that we do have the stream chat components and the functionality ready to go. So that would be one way. That would work perfectly fine. I'm just going to make some quick changes to the editor to make this load in the default location. So that is the first way covered of how we can get the stream chat plugin installed. The second way is my preferred way. As the team has made this so seamless, we can head over to the Unreal Marketplace and we can download it from there. So just to ensure that there's no conflict, I'm going to remove the plugins folder. We won't use that at all inside of our project. And we can close the place that we've downloaded the zip. We can leave all of the other folders as they are, and we probably will need this project folder in the Windows Explorer a little bit later. So I will leave this window open. The next step is going to be getting the Epic Launcher open. We'll navigate to the marketplace, and what we want to do is just search for Stream Chat. We can see just here that we have the correct option. It's created by Stream, named Stream Chat. We can get the same information as provided on their webpage so that we know that we're in the correct place. If you haven't already got this, you can buy this for free. So you will need to technically buy this to add it to your account, but of course it is a free plugin. When you have that linked to your account, you can see you have here the option to install this to the engine. We've got the same engine versions as on the Git repository, so supporting 4.27 and 5. And if you press the install to engine, I've installed this both to 4.27 and Unreal 5.0. So I won't get the options, but you would normally get the options to install it to your chosen engine version. When you have that done, that is everything that you need to do. As I said, super simple, very streamlined. And because I already have this installed to my engine versions, I can just go back and reopen the project. So we'll open the tanks project again, and we can see that we're going to get the same option, but this time we can activate it through the version installed to the engine rather than on a per project basis. So I'm just going to go back up to Edit, Plugins, and we'll go to Other. We can see this time this isn't automatically enabled because we haven't directly placed it into the project. So this is the version that we're getting through the marketplace. We can activate this. As with anything, we will need to restart the editor, so we'll do that now. And again, we're going to be ready to go and start working on our chat system. Okay, so at this stage, I just wanted to mention this is something that I've run into with the new version of Unreal Engine 5. So it's a really important message to get across here. If you're having any problems getting plugins installed, the issue that I was getting specifically is that it seemed like the plugin had been installed. There were no crashes, there were no warnings or errors or anything like that. When I opened the project, all of the content folders, so everything in the browser, the blueprints, even the assets were completely empty. In the Windows Explorer, you could see the remnants of the U assets there, but the project was essentially corrupt and we couldn't find the assets. After looking into this, I couldn't find anything covering how to fix this. And what I discovered is it seems to be related to having a previous version of Unreal Engine 5 installed. In my case, I had the preview version installed from very early on. You may have something like the early access version installed as well. So if you get a situation which sounds similar to what I've just described, what I'd recommend doing is just completely wiping the earlier versions. So completely uninstall and remove any of the preview versions, the early access or anything like that. And preferably just download the stable Unreal Engine 5.0 from the Epic Launcher. And I use the word stable very loosely at the moment. Another thing that you can do inside of the Explorer window, we can right click and we'll choose to go to the show more options and switch the engine version. And again, just to ensure that this isn't trying to track down a version of the engine you may have thought you'd already removed, but maybe there's some kind of lingering files. So again, I could see here that in my case, it was because it was trying to open it with a Unreal 5 preview version rather than 5.0. So make sure this is opening with the correct version and you should again be good to go. Just want to mention this isn't related to Stream Chat. This is just a problem I was getting with any plugins when working with Unreal 5 because I had multiple versions installed and I didn't realize. So hopefully that helps. And if you hadn't realized you still had some lingering files, you might be able to get back some of that juicy drive space. With that out of the way, we can begin to integrate the features that we want into our project. We're going to need to link our project that we have here to what is referred to as an application in the StreamChat SDK. To do this, I'm just going to head back on over to getstreamchat.io, and we want to create or sign into an account if you already have an account with them. So first of all, I just wanted to mention a few things. If we go to the pricing page, we have a couple of ways that we can get started here. So you can see that if you're working in a bigger team or you've got a bigger project already going with a lot of monthly active users or a certain amount of revenue, then you may find you're working on a bigger team where you have the chargeable accounts. We also have the option here to start a free trial. However, if we scroll down a little bit further, we can see we've got the option of signing up for a free for makers account. Now this is what I'm using, and this allows the small guys like ourselves to access the StreamChat SDK for free. So I'd recommend taking this route. You can also do the start free trial if you wanted, but if you apply for this now, you'll get a few details that you need to place in here. You can make sure that you are hitting the criteria for the free makers account, essentially making under a certain amount per month, which is 10K of monthly revenue, which I think for most of us will be perfectly fine, and so on. To register for that, otherwise, as I've said, sign in. And when you've signed up or signed in, you'll see that the button up here has now changed to dashboard. So we just want to click on this and go to our overview to start creating our apps and managing our project. So the first thing is we're going to want to create the app here. Generally, you want to make the name something relating to the project you're working on. So for me, this will be tanks. The app name does need to be unique, so you may need to add some extra information here for yours. And then we'll need to fill the server location. So this is just going to be somewhere close to where you think you are. So for me, this will be EU West and EU West for both. We don't have any existing apps to clone, and we want to make sure that this is in development. We're not going to be doing the production stuff. With that done, we can create the app and we can just start looking through some of the new details we have here. So the thing that we'll be returning to a little bit later is the Explorer. By default, we have a default creator or user, which is ourselves, and more of these will be populated as we go through the tutorial. We also want to go back to overview quickly. There's one thing we want to change here and one thing we want to take. So the first thing is we'll need the API key just here. So we can just copy this now. We'll need that a little bit later in our project. And under the authentication, we want to disable auth checks. This is just going to speed things up for development. In production, you'd want to keep this enabled, but we're not going to have the full process enabled, just to keep things nice and quick and easy to cover. So what we want to do is we'll submit this to make sure those changes are updated. And that is pretty much everything that we need to do here right now. So we've got our key, we've disabled the auth checks, we're ready to jump back over to Unreal. Inside of the project then, we're going to need somewhere to store the chat client component. For this type of project, it's recommended that it's something which will be client side, and the official documentation suggests a HUD. So that's exactly what we'll create. We'll come into the blueprints folder. I'll place this in the games folder. We'll right click to create a new blueprint class, and we'll go to find the HUD. With the HUD selected, we'll create a new one of these and we'll call this BP_HUD. And of course, we're just going to jump to the project settings. I already have all of this set up with a custom game mode, the custom player and everything as we need for the project to run. So we're just going to replace the HUD class to be BP_HUD. Okay, so that's nice and simple. That one will be loaded as soon as we press play and join the main map. Next, inside of the BP_HUD, this is where we want to create our new component. So we'll go to the add button. We'll find the stream chat. So we can see here we have the stream chat client, which is what we'll want. With this selected, in the right-hand side, we have the option here for the API key. This is the one we copied a moment ago. So we're just going to paste this in just here. So this is now going to link our project to our application on the website. In the event graph, I'm just going to remove some of the unrequired nodes. We basically only need the event begin play. We'll have all of our logic firing to sync this up, create the users as soon as we enter the map. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we'll control drag the stream chat client into our event graph. And as soon as we begin play, we want to start managing, creating and syncing the users that we will potentially have in our game. So this stream chat client component is going to give us access to all of the functionality that we'll need. And for the users step, what we're going to do is we'll use the connect user function. Again, this is purely for development and testing, but what we're going to do is we will create two users depending on whether we're playing from the client or the server. The way that we'll do this is we'll drag from here and we'll find a select node. And for the wildcard, we want to have this set depending on whether, as I've just said, we're client side or server side. So we'll use the built-in is server function and simply plug this into our wildcard. Now, all of this is going to be case sensitive and we need these names to match. And very simply, I've already got the logic set up in the actual player classes. So this is going to be important. We'll take a quick aside here. When you're pressing play, we want to make sure that we have this set to 2 players and we want to play as the listen server. I'm also going to play this from the new editor window just here. And we'll just cancel that because I've not finished the things we need here. So we need to unhook this just temporarily. And now if we press play, we're going to get 2 windows, one for the server, one for the client. So if we host, this will take us in and the server will always be red. So the server tank will be red. If we press refresh and join, then this would try to load. This is going to crash and I'll show you how to fix this later. Another reason I wanted to use Unreal 5 is because this is another bug that I found engine side. I'll show you how to fix this. But if we were able to join right now, this would load in a second tank that would be blue. Okay, so what we're going to do is if false, so if we're not on the server, we'll call this one blue. And if it's true, we'll call this one red. Okay, nice and simple. So this will actually just be used a little bit later in creating a token. We also want to make our users. So we need a user, first of all. This is just going to be a token, which is kind of like a password for them. And this will be generating a unique password based on the information provided. So for the actual user, we're going to pull off of this and say make user. Okay, so this is going to provide a lot of information. All of this will actually be mirrored on the web page. So if you wanted to go over to the web page very quickly, we can take a quick look at this. If we go to Explorer, Users, we can see here under the one that's already created, we have similar things. So the ID, we're going to have things, I remember seeing the whether we're banned, whether we're online, things like that will all sync up with the information that we have just here. So in this case, we're not going to pre-populate all of this information. We'll let that kind of be handled in the browser side of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all of the unconnected pins, which is all of them, and then just re-enable the ID just here. This is the only thing we want. And basically we're going to create 2 of these. So we're going to have one called blue and again, one called red. So I'm going to unhook this. I'm going to duplicate this with Control and D, and we'll call this one red. So likewise, we want this to be based. So again, we're going to create the user based on whether we're server side. So we're going to want to do another select node. Just move this out of the way. We'll duplicate this as well, just so we don't have wires going everywhere. And we'll plug this in. So again, if false, so if we're client side, we want to be named blue. If we're server side, we want to be named red. And I'm kind of going through this step by step so it makes sense, but this isn't really providing us a token that we need right now. So what we're going to want to do, we've got the first part of the puzzle down. We actually want to have this generate a dev token, which is again another function provided by Stream Chat. So we'll type dev token. And we can see here, we get a function which is going to return a string. We want to pass in the user ID and the dev token, which is the important thing, which is going to be, like I've said, a uniquely generated password essentially is going to be created based on the name of the person that we're passing in. So client will create one dev token, server will create another dev token, and they'll be linked in our application over in the browser that we've been looking at. So there we have, we're now creating or connecting and creating our users. And we're providing tokens for them, and that is going to be the first step of getting our chat system working. Now again, in a full production environment, you would probably want the username to be based more on something like the Steam ID or the Epic user ID, depending on the platform that you're using, or even allowing the player to enter their own name. But again, for demonstration purposes, this should get across what's happening and how to use the system and be very reusable that way. So the next thing that we want to do is I'm going to duplicate the Stream Chat client. We now want to set this up to watch a certain channel. So again, we're just going to find the watch function. So we'll pull from here and we'll find the watch channel function. And all of this will start making sense as we go through, and we're going to have to sort of jump back between here and the browser and we'll see where all of this is kind of connecting between our project and the application that we've created. So quite simply, all we really need to fill here is the channel properties. We can do this by using the set members function. We specifically want the user ID option here, and we have 2 things to fill here. a unique list of user IDs, which is going to be, you've probably guessed, blue and red. So an array, we can very, very easily make this. So we'll do the make array call. We'll add 2 values here. And again, very important, this matches. So all case sensitive, we've got blue and red. Basically just saying that in this session, we're expecting to have these users ready, and that's what we'll be watching. And then we want the channel properties as well. And we can pull from here and we'll do the make channel properties call. Okay, so there's actually only one thing that we need to fill here. Again, we have a lot more information if we wanted to. The main thing is the type of channel that we'll be watching. I'm just going to jump back over here, so hopefully this doesn't get confusing at any point. What we want to do is we can find the different channel types. And specifically, in this case, you can see we don't have any channels at the moment, but we want to be watching the messaging channel. So if we go back in, we just want to make sure we have this all lowercase, matching what we have here, messaging. Okay, so that is the channel that we'll be watching for our users that we have down here. We don't need any IDs or any extra data. This is all good to go. Now we have a few more steps and this will be ready to test. So we've pretty much done everything which is related specifically to the stream chat functionality. The next thing we need to do is more Unreal related. So we actually want to have our widget displaying that will allow us to press a button and then start typing into a chat window. So this is actually going to be just using the bog standard create widget function. The widget that we want to use is one provided by Stream Chat. So we're going to go down to the game chat widget. So WBP underscore in-game chat. If we navigate to this, we can take a very quick look at what we'll be using. So this is probably familiar from the demo I showed a little bit earlier, but we'll be typing into this window. It's just a standard widget blueprint, as you can see here, but it's useful to know that we can come in, add additional features, change the styling, add some custom logic, sounds, or whatever you wanted. In this case, I quite like the minimal design. It fits fairly well with the design I've already chosen. So I will close this, and this is what we'll be using. We can pass in the owning player so we can get the player controller. So again, just a very standard approach here. And then from this, the final stream chat functionality that we need to set up is we're going to drag from the return pin here, and we're going to call a new setup function. Okay, so we can see this is a stream chat function called setup, and this is going to allow us to link all of the information we're tracking above just here to our widget that we've just created. So we can see we have an in channel which is expecting a value, and we have an out channel here. So of course we're just going to hook these two up. So the channel that we're watching is the one that we want to set up with this widget. So that can be plugged in just there. And then of course, very important, we're just going to drag from here and we'll do the add to a viewport call. Very easy to forget, but very important to actually display our new widget. So hopefully you can see what's happening now. When we're coming in, we'll try and make this as tidy as possible. When we're coming in, we are connecting our users. So depending on where we're playing from, we are setting this to watch the messaging channel for these players. And we're going to create the widget just so that we can type into something when we assign a shortcut key. And then quite simply, we're adding this to the viewport when it's being tracked. So that is as difficult as it is to get the stream chat implemented in your project. So this is almost ready to test. There's just one more thing that we need to do to get this working in a normal production pipeline. And then there's one thing, as I've mentioned, an issue with the version of Unreal 5 at the moment, which I'll cover as a kind of extra topic, just to make sure that nobody's getting stuck or left behind. So the first thing related to Stream Chat is we're going to go to the project settings, we'll go to input, and we're going to go to the action mappings. We basically need a button which when we press it will bring up our chat window and allow us to start typing. So this is really, really important at this stage. We want to make sure that the name of the action mapping is again case sensitive and spelt exactly the same way we have here, which is chat. This has already been bound on the plugin source and we'll be leveraging that functionality. So it's very important this is spelt in the same way with the same capitalization, so nice and simple. And then the key can be bound to anything. So I'm going to press the small button here, press 1, and I'm just going to bind this to the number 1. So that is nice and simple. So again, that is now ready to test. Problem being is that the current version of Unreal 5 has a very interesting bug where if the map that you're loading into, when you're in a networked game and you're using the default join sessions function, so because I'm not using anything like the advanced sessions, I'm just using a join session when the join button is pressed. If the map that you're loading into has a terrain, which in this case, I'm using a very simple terrain. It's not very detailed or anything, but it is a terrain object. Then this will cause the engine to hard crash. Quite a bug to allow into production, but I wanted to cover this just because I figured other people may be running into the same issue. So I'll actually demonstrate this very quickly. So as I've done previously, if I host with the server window, this will work perfectly fine. So hosting isn't an issue, it's just joining. And very quickly, I'm going to hop back on over to the browser just because I wanted to also show that now that we've had our first user join, we can see that they've been added here. So red has been added and they're currently online because that is the active session I've literally just created. So I just wanted to demonstrate that. Now, if this would actually work, what we should see is blue being created, but because of the engine bug, this isn't going to currently happen. So we can refresh this. We'll find the active sessions. Ideally, we'd press join and this would take us to the same map, but I'll just show you that this is going to load for a little while and then it's going to cause this hard crash. So like I've mentioned again, just want to really highlight this is nothing to do with stream chat. This is a bug that Epic seem to have let through. It's a lazy object pointer issue. And again, nothing seems to really detail what this problem is, but we've noticed here that it says it's an issue of the landscape.cpp, which is what led me down the path of realizing that it's because we're transitioning from one scene or map to another, which has the landscape in it. So in this case, I'm just going to allow this to send that and restart. Hopefully this gets fixed in later versions, but at the moment I just figured that's going to be pretty useful to cover because that could be causing a lot of people issues. The fix that I found for this is we're going to go to the main map with the terrain, the map with the terrain in it, the one that we'll be moving to. And all I've needed to do is we're going to come in here and we'll do the build all levels option. Now this is going to build everything, lighting, navigation, and so on. So it can take a little while. This is a fairly small project, so it's not going to take too long. And with that done, we'll get some warnings just because of the funky UV mapping and the kind of stylized approach that I've taken here, but they're all fine. And now what we'll find is if we go back to the main menu, we'll load this the same way. So we'll host this and we'll have the red tank appear. We'll refresh this to find our sessions again. And after a small amount of time, we should now be able to go and join the other map without this crash happening. Now, in this case, that hasn't been the issue. This has worked in pretty much every other test that I've done. This is one of those things where it's worked 100% of the times where I've been trying to fix this in the past, but just not at the time of recording. So another thing that we can do just to be fully sure that everything's been wiped and rebuilt correctly, we're going to probably want to get rid of things like the save folder. And in fact, I'm just going to get rid of everything to be safe, allow these to be rebuilt. We'll do another building of the entire level system. So we'll allow it to rebuild everything and we'll give that a go again. It's worth mentioning as well that this is only crashing in the editor, which is probably why it slipped through, even though a lot of games are probably using the standard join session function and probably have a terrain in the map that you're transitioning to. It doesn't seem to crash the packaged games. So this might be why this has got through as a bit of an engine bug. So we'll give this a go again though. We will rebuild this, we'll allow this to do everything. And then we'll just double check. We'll go back to our main menu map just to ensure that this is working as expected. So again, I just need to set this back up to be 2-player with a listen server. Play this. Also make sure this is a play and editor, new window. So from the server, we want to host. From the client, we want to find this and join. And this time that has all worked perfectly fine. So that's what I was kind of expecting the first time. So just another step you might need to do is just remove some of those unnecessary folders and let it regenerate. So just something that I figured would be useful to cover because it's a fairly obscure bug, but I think it could probably affect a lot of people doing their editor tests. But the important thing now is we have our 2 tanks, so we can control both of these. And of course, the very important thing is if I press 1, which is my shortcut key, we can see we have the chat box coming up. So I'm just going to type in I'm red, so we know who's talking. We have the red tank. We can see that popped up on the other window here, and I'll do the same again. So this one, I'll type I'm blue. And again, we can see that popping up on the server. So that's working from both the client and the server. All we had to do to get these 2 different players talking to each other from client and server is just this small snippet of code here, but it's not just that. That alone is very simple to get that kind of functionality going, but all of this is being tracked over in our application here. So we now have blue has been created as well. And if we go down to moderation, this is what's really cool, is we can see that all of this is being tracked. So we can see who's been saying what. And if we load this again, let's just play another version of our game. I'll quickly load the browser in the background. So we can see here we've got we'll host a game, we'll refresh and we'll join. What we're going to be looking out for is that this is going to be updating in real time, which I think is really cool. So if we type something from red, just press the console command button there. So red again, we can see immediately a new message has popped up from red saying what I've just typed, and we'll just type blue again. Okay, so very cool. It's also worth saying as well that all of this is going to update in real time. So we can see that online is now false. If we log back in and play again, this will change to true and so on. And because this is our moderation, as an admin, we can come in and we can remove or edit messages. I'm not sure why you'd do that, but we can delete messages and things like that. So we've got full control over these. So all of this is synced up. And as I said, that was a very, very simple integration to have all of this tracked for us, doing very, very little work to get all of this syncing. With that done, we can now play around a little. You've seen how quick, easy, and fun it can be to get a chat system implemented into your game. As I've mentioned, Stream Chat provide a ton of additional features. We've only really scratched the surface, but this has shown you at the very least how to get users connected, track a specific channel, and keep all of this updated between the project in Unreal and the application on the Stream Chat site. So with that done, you can see some intense competitive goodness going on in the background here. And of course, we can leave some elite gamer trash talk using this nice and intuitive chat system. So as I've mentioned, there will be more networking content coming up on the channel. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you wanted to see a lot more in-depth content around local and networked multiplayer using the built-in system as we've seen here, as well as the advanced sessions plugin, and creating a fully networked game, as I've mentioned, including a full game loop. The only thing is that I'll probably leave this until some of the engine bugs, like I've kind of detailed here, have been ironed out. Hopefully that shouldn't take too long, but it will definitely be a focus for some of the upcoming content to the channel.